On October 2nd, City Council voted unanimously to reclassify marijuana possession under an ounce. What that means in layman's terms is that arrests should not be made for marijuana possession under an ounce in the city of Atlanta. This was a victory that came after almost a year of fighting. Community members, along with community businesses, neighborhood planning units, and community organizations like Solutions Not Punishment Collaborative.
Right, so reclassification of marijuana under an ounce in the city code is a huge deal because, as Che was saying earlier, it sends a message to APD. It makes very clear that the people, the city council, and the mayor who signed this legislation do not think people should be sitting behind bars for possessing under an ounce of marijuana. However, there is still a state law on the books in the state of Georgia that that does allow for arrest and does allow for up to that $1,000 fine. And so we are letting people know that they should know their rights, they should be careful, but we are also working very hard to ensure that even though that state law exists, we know the Atlanta Police Department can still have a set of priorities and can send a directive to officers to not arrest on this. And our next line of work is really to ensure that nobody in the city of Atlanta is spending time in our jail for possession of marijuana under an ounce, whether that's the city ordinance or the state code. So in the research that we did for the last few years, you see almost 1,000 people going into our city jail a year for possession of marijuana under an ounce. So that's almost 1,000 people who lose 1 to 17 to days of their lives, on average 5.5 days of their life in the city jail, where they can lose a job, lose housing, lose their children. So what SNAPCO and the Racial Justice Action Center and the people of Atlanta are concerned with is about the way we currently do policing. It's about broken window policing. It's about racially biased policing. It's about the way that the Atlanta Police Department is used to solve every other social problem in the city. And right now, that is epitomized when you look at our city jail. In our city jail, we have 450 people on any given day who are in there for nothing more than a traffic violation or a city ordinance violation. So jaywalking, spitting on the sidewalk, possession of marijuana under an ounce. And really, people are in there because they are Black, because they are homeless, because they are struggling with mental health issues, because they are struggling with a substance use issue, and unmet needs, because there aren't enough social services in the city of Atlanta.
So SNAPCO is a Black, trans, and queer-led organization that is committed to building the power of our people to wage campaigns that divest from the prison industrial complex and invest resources into our communities. If you've seen the infographics we have, those things were all created by SNAPCO. We invested a lot of time and energy into developing very clear infographics, one-pagers to educate both the community and the elected officials around why this was such an important issue. And so there was definitely a lot of time that was put into research and education. There was also, unfortunately, and I think it gets lost in the media, but a life was lost. On January 26th of this year, DeAndre Phillips was murdered by APD. And the reason for the stop was the scent of marijuana. What we were seeing was a lot of police violence and a lot of community outrage, righteous outrage at what was happening. And so SNAPCO worked together with community members to form what was the Criminal Justice Reform Package that was then later introduced by Kwanza Hall. And so in this fight to pass this criminal justice reform package, the city council began to break down the package and address the individual laws themselves.
This fight picked back up in around September, which coincided with the mayoral race getting really heated. And so what we saw was that candidates for the seat of mayor were suddenly very concerned about what the issues were in this community. And so the issue of marijuana possession under an ounce was brought up at a forum, and the candidates jumped on it. And I think that partially that was because the people of Atlanta care about this issue and will vote on this issue, and partially because this is an issue that's sort of an easy divider. It really shows us who is for criminal justice reform, who is for changing the face of Atlanta, and who wants to go with the old way, who wants to ignore racial disparities in this city. And so it was very easy for the candidates who wanted to have a platform that, supported Black community, that supported criminal justice reform, to say, this is a way that I'm going to prove that to the community.
So what I think was just a key piece of this fight and why it moved so many people was the real data and the statistics. And we were able to look over a 3-year time period and understand who was being targeted for this law. So we're not talking just in a general way that about racially biased policing. We're talking about a city that is 53 to 54% Black. An issue where everybody knows that all races use marijuana at the same rates. And what we saw was that 92% of all the arrests for marijuana possession under an ounce were of Black folks in the city of Atlanta. That is a terrible racial disparity, and one which I think it was very hard for the city council to be able to hear and not take action on. Part of the fight to reclassify marijuana actually began with, as Dean said, a list of close to 80 ordinances that we wanted to see repealed. 40 of those ordinances actually have been repealed. They were the most outdated and the most archaic, and the city of Atlanta moved forward on repealing them. So we have now won this, and this is a huge victory, and now we need to press on, because this is how we are going to step by step end broken windows policing in the city of Atlanta.